Welcome to the Founders Lounge, where business meets bullshit and everything in between.
Third time.
That was a good punch in there.
Yeah.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Founders Lounge. We have a guest on the show today. I'm calling it the Clean Eatz Owner Series. How's that?
I love it, man, because that's what it is.
Does that sound professional?
Yeah.
We got a fellow franchise partner of mine and good buddy of mine, Casey Schroeder. How you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having
What's up,
me.
Casey?
How we doing?
So I've interviewed 3 or 4 of our owners now who have just downright, I think, amazing and incredible stories. And I knew that I was getting to you eventually. Your background is very unique when it comes to the collective of our ownership group. We have
been there a long time.
I think you're the only professional athlete. I'd have to think deeper, but I'm pretty sure you're the only one. But
Yeah, as far as I know.
But let's just jump into it, man. Talk about your background, and then we'll get into how you kind of found Clean Eatz. And I want to tell this. You know what story I'm going to tell, but talk about your background first.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm a franchisee in Columbus, Ohio. Grew up in Ohio, small farm town. Kind of middle of nowhere. Growing up, sports was really, my whole life. I shouldn't tell my mom that, she obviously wanted me to go to school, but, sports are everything. It was kind of, my dad and I's thing. Found out at a fairly young age that, I could hit a baseball and, play pretty well. We didn't really know, what that looked like in the future, growing up doing the travel ball circuit thing. I always played up. I mean, I think, I was 8 years old playing 13U, 14U, and, just kind of hung around. And, a funny story, with my dad was, I think in 8th grade, he just dropped me off at American Legion tryouts, which is 18U. And I'm 13, 14. And he's like, good luck. Basically, don't come home if you don't make the team. And, I put together a good workout and made the team. So, I mean, I kind of always played, up, and, that's when we kind of thought, hey, maybe, maybe I can do this in college, get a scholarship, something like that. And, a little bit before that, I think as, my dad and his friends wanted a vacation every year. So they decided, what's within driving distance, and they wanted to go south. So I think when I was in 6th grade, I started going to University of Tennessee baseball camps. And,
nice.
If I could ask my dad now, it probably wasn't, thinking that I could go to school there or anything. It was just he wanted a boys trip, and it was a 6-hour drive away. So we're going to go to University of Tennessee baseball camps, and they kept inviting me back. And I'm sure that was a money grab, for their camp money. But they ended up offering me a scholarship when I was a freshman. And, since I was going to those camps, they invited me on a visit to, I would think it was homecoming week versus Ole Miss. I was at Neyland Stadium with 110,000. They're playing Rocky Top. I'm like, Dad, I'm coming here. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. So I, committed there. Obviously was early on in my high school career. As a freshman, and then right before my junior year, when you sign your national letter of intent, the coaching staff got fired. So I was kind of at a scrambling moment there, and to tell you kind of how cutthroat college athletics is, I think 10 minutes after
terrible
10 minutes after the coaching staff got fired, Kentucky called me. Are you staying there? Are you open up your recruitment again? And I ended up opening up my recruitment, ended up going to University of Kentucky. Before that, I actually got drafted by your St. Louis Cardinals out of high school.
Yeah.
So that was a cool experience. Got to play at Busch Stadium, work out there. Beautiful stadium. But ended up going to Kentucky. I was a catcher at that level in high school. I mostly played infield, so I was pretty raw behind the plate, but had some athletic ability. Ended up my ultimate goal was to play professional baseball, and I realized that I needed to develop a lot more as a catcher. So I ended up leaving Kentucky. I went to a junior college in Florida for a year. I had a really good year down there. Got to develop from a coach that was behind Mike Napoli and Jeff Mathis. So really knew what he was doing, and I developed a lot as a defensive catcher, and ended up getting drafted by the Oakland A's after that season. Um, Decided once again not to sign. I thought my dad was going to shoot me, and ended up committing to Coastal Carolina. Played a summer up there on the Cape Cod League before that, and had a good year at Coastal. Got drafted by the White Sox in the 8th round. Ended up signing and playing 4 years in their organization. So it's kind of been a wild ride. All over the country. Got to meet a lot of people, a lot of opportunities. Obviously paid for my education, and had a really cool experience. A lot of people don't get to experience the backside of professional sports and all that stuff that goes on. So it's definitely shaped me as a person. I think for for better or for worse.
Yeah, I think what's wild to me is just like every other young boy growing up, watching sports, loving baseball, watching football, basketball, and then me being blessed to be able to do what I do and grow the business that I did. I got exposed to a lot of the back end of athletics, through business, through networking, and it does, man. It opens your eye. College athletics specifically, much less the pros, but just college athletics specifically, I don't think the normal person understands how that back end works.
Well,
It is
it's funny you say,
and savage.
well, it's funny you say normal people. So I remember, when I got done playing and, had to assimilate into normal life, I called people normal people, have different sense of humor.
Oh yeah.
They look at me like I have 3 heads, with some of the stuff I'm saying.
And you were at UT in Kentucky. Those schools are no joke, man. Those are big systems.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny, my dad joked and growing up, it was almost like we told Ohio State, like, don't recruit me. Like I'm not, not to sound conceited, like that. I would have went to Ohio State,
Gotcha. Yeah.
We were like, we want to go south, want to get to warmer weather. Obviously the goal was always to play in the SEC. So, that was cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I got my first time on the field against LSU at Alex Box Stadium, 15,000 in the crowd. I'm shitting my pants.
Hey, man. Nealon's no joke either. Sarah, she went to UT, and I stepped on that field as a non-athlete and was impressed. I can't imagine performing.
That's a different experience. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. You got I think 110,000 in there.
It's insane. Yeah, it's a level that few reach.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know, just because I know you so well, I mean, I know your transition from baseball to what you're doing now, but talk about that transition for a minute. Like, okay, you're out of baseball now. How did you stumble across Clean Eats?
Well, I mean, the funny thing was, so obviously at Coastal, I was in Myrtle Beach, and I would go back there in the off seasons, 1 to train, and then 2 to finish school. And it was actually my strength coach that recommended I, go eat at this place called Clean Eats. It fit my goals as an athlete and what I was trying to accomplish, and I just became a regular at the store down there, and really liked the food. Became friendly with the owner there, who was transparent with the concept and the model. And I've always been kind of a meathead, and I didn't know what I wanted to do when I got done playing ball, but I was like, I think I could do something like this. I've always been a self-starter, wanted to do something for myself, didn't know what that was. It's funny because I brought before my dad passed, I brought the idea to him one off season, and he was pissed because he's like, he's like,
as you would be.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, you need to just worry about hitting a fucking changeup.
Yeah.
I'm getting to franchising on the side.
Yeah. So, that was funny. And then, obviously kept playing ball, kind of put that on the back burner at the time. And, but still, did a lot of research on it. I had talks with Jason East all the time when he was heading up the franchise development side. And, my second to last year of pro ball, my dad passed unexpectedly, and something kind of, changed with me to where I was like, part of the game kind of died with that. And also, the gauntlet of professional sports and working your way through the ranks. And I'm just like, I really want to put all my time and energy and effort into something that, is going to be fruitful for me, and, that I can, reap all of the benefits from. And then, on top of that, my sister was at Ohio State, my mom was still at home, and I kind of got this weird, paternalistic feeling almost like, hey, I got to, take care of my family now. When obviously that wasn't the case, they were completely well off on their own, but I just felt that was time, and I decided to make the jump to do this, open the first Clean Eats location here in 2018. And, here we are. It was funny when I first met, I mean, you tell this story all the time. You might be the one you want to tell, so I'll hold off. But kind of when I
it absolutely is. Go ahead.
Came to meet you, you and Yvonne in Racine.
Yeah, so that was probably early 2017. I don't know the timeline there, but we were young, man. We didn't even have 30 units.
I remember meeting,
and our recruitment process was you came to Racine, you sat with me and Yvonne for 2 hours, maybe an hour. And if we liked you, you were in. Like, that was it.
Yep.
We weren't vetting people's financials. We were just winging it, And but ironically, we were still going with our guts, so we were still turning people down. It wasn't like we were just accepting anybody. And Casey comes in with his agent Ryan, and he sits down, and we're sitting out on our covered patio, and we're just kind of bantering back and forth like this, getting to know him and asking him about his background, and he's telling his story and talking about his family. And mid stride, man, his agent Ryan whips out this big old can of Grizzly and just sitting there, just starts slapping it, and he throws this log in his mouth. And I was just sitting there fiending too, because at the time I was like 2 cans a day, so I was chewing a lot, and I was dying for one. But I'm like, no, I got to be professional. I can't chew in this thing. And he whips out this can, and he's just smacking it like this. I'm like, this dude's in. I don't care. He's in. I don't care. Just bring him in. And then I reached into my pocket and threw a dip in, and Yvonne looks at me and she goes, I can't believe you're going to do it. Well, he's doing it, so fuck it. I'm going to do it.
Oh, man. I was shitting my pants because, I think at the time I was like 24, 25 years old. I'm all buttoned up, collared shirt, trying to, be professional and get approved for this. And I look at him and I'm like, I cannot believe you just did that.
I remember meeting with Casey out on that patio too. We were like, you, Sarah, and I, Sarah, my wife, and it doesn't matter. We were going over like rat card shit or something. You wanted some changes, and I was like really impressed. I was like, this dude is so humble. Because I was really impressed with your pedigree and background in athletics. And you're right. I mean, back in the day when you guys were just really starting to grow, we ran across a lot of different people. He was about the nicest I had met. And I was like, this dude's a good guy. And his background in sports is probably going to help him build this here. So,
yeah, well, I think that go ahead, Don.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, honestly, I think Clean Eats saved me from mentally making that transition, because it was kind of like oh shit, like you got to figure this out, to where a lot of athletes, when they get done playing, they really struggle to find themselves. Yep. Kind of the sport's been their identity their whole life. And then they get into corporate America or whatever it is, and they hate it, and they can't figure it out because, they identified as, an athlete for so long. Where me, no restaurant experience. I think I worked as a pizza doughboy for a week once, and I said, to hell with this, and next thing I'm running my own restaurant. And it's kind of just like, I didn't have any time to even think about, should I still be playing? Should I do this? Should I do that? It was just, dude, you got to figure this shit out. Like, or you're going to drown. So in a way, I'm extremely grateful because it let me compete, just like I was when I was playing, just in a different sphere. So yeah,
you still have to maintain that edge.
Yeah, exactly.
It's still satisfying that itch.
And it's still the same way, almost 8 years later.
Well, what's crazy is what you didn't say it verbatim, but what you just said there, your story hasn't changed. I remember you telling us that, like, I need to figure out kind of the second half.
Yeah.
And that's rare that you talk to people 8 years later and it's like, that's exactly what he said at the table when he was talking about, like, why the hell would you want to, no offense, but why would you want to get into any kind of business when you've got an athletic career in front of you? And your reasoning has not changed. And
yeah, well, it's still the same way, like I said, 8 years later now. And
yeah,
My employees probably hate it because I'm just, always like, what are we doing? We got to get better. We got to get better at this. We got to do better at that. What's next? I mean, I'm like, I crunch numbers for fun. Like I'm just
Yeah.
like insane.
Well, something you said a minute ago kind of segued into where I wanted to go with this next. So you said you got out of baseball and got into the restaurant industry and you didn't even know what you were doing.
Hmm.
What I think is ironic about that is neither the hell did we.
Yeah.
You mentioned other athletes try to transition into corporate America. A lot of them will go into very well established brands that have a very clear cut path, right? And they have proven financial models. They pretty much know what they're going to make when they get into these
Right.
endeavors. And for you to take a risk and to come on board with us in a franchise brand that was less than 30 units old, I mean, we didn't know our damn selves. And I'm going to be honest with you, and we can get into this in a minute, but you know as well as I do where we're at right now. We're still there 10 years later, man.
Yeah.
Like, yes, our brand has grown, it's evolved, and it's tightened up really, really much, much tighter than what it was when Casey came on board. But we're still only 120 units big, man. That's nothing
Yeah.
compared to some of the people that we play ball with. So we're still there. And that's kind of where I wanted to go with this. So like kind of walk through the first like 6 months to a year after you made that transition. And now like I'm sitting there like, shit, I'm an entrepreneur now. Now I got to run a restaurant. Like, what was that like coming out that first year trying to figure all that out? And what surprised you in it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I learned more in this first 6 months than I did entire college, education. And I mean,
I don't doubt it.
it's trial by fire. Obviously, I probably didn't do everything perfect, by any means, and I had to learn, lessons. Like early on, I tried to please everybody, whether that be employees, whether that be customers. I tried to please everybody. And I learned real quick, it's gonna be a long day every day if you do that. So that, I think the biggest thing that I struggled with was managing people. I'm a workhorse. I'm not scared of working. That's what I do best. I tell people all the time, like, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I'll outwork you. So that was kind of my mantra. And I did that for probably 3 years, 3 to 4 years of just trial and error to get the right people in place. It took me a while, and now I have a really good team. Coming up on 5 locations. I feel like you have to, otherwise you don't make it there.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the first couple of years were hard, but I mean, we found a lot of success early on, just because I think the brand is something that people are longing for. We are providing solutions to people. It's just growing the name. I think we have the same conversations all the time, kind of like what you just mentioned. Have we come light years ahead of where we were? Yeah, absolutely. But I still think the ceiling is so high that we haven't even touched yet.
Well, we were attempting to record an episode before you came on. We had to pivot, and we're going to rerun it here in a minute.
Yeah.
But one of the things that Steve and I were talking about that'll be mentioned in that episode is, you mentioned this is kind of like the year of the pivot.
Yeah.
Right. And I agreed with him, and I was like, well, we're there with Clean Eats right now. Like, we're 10 years in. This is our 10-year kind of anniversary of being a franchise, right? The brand's 13 years old. We're on year 10 of being a franchise. And I feel like now, 10 years in, this is the year of pivot, right? Like, we're working on things on the back end. Casey, you're involved in that. But, to where we're trying to figure out how do we adapt and survive and pivot when things in the world are changing with AI, speed of service, convenience. Labor models are changing all over the damn country. You got markets. Casey's yours is one of them where, labor is so expensive now. And we used to say that our model was a low labor model, which at one point it was. Some could argue, depending on who we're competing against, it may still be, but we still. Right now, we're trying to figure out how do we reduce our labor model inside these restaurants.
And labor loyalty, too. I mean, the turnover rates are increasing.
And so I feel like we're there. Like, Clean Eats is right here at this pivot moment where we're like just trying to figure out different things that we can tweak and change to enhance the model, make it more profitable, easier to run, and things like that. And a ton of brands and a ton of companies do it. I think we just took us a little longer to get there, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I mean, think about how much more we offer than a traditional place.
Right.
I think that's the kicker in it all. And so, we have to be, I guess smarter than they are on how we implement it, and how we figure it out, just because, we have so much going on.
I mean, Casey, you nailed it, man. Like, you were there for rollouts and new revenue streams. You're up to 5 now, but it was probably 2 meal plans and in-house sales, cafe sales when you came on, and maybe some marketplace stuff, products, but pretty loose though.
Well, the main 3 were the cafe and then the meal plans and grab and goes.
The grab and go. You're right.
We didn't really focus on marketplace.
Yeah, that was really our sole focus.
That was it, bud. I mean, I remember, and that's the light years ahead, like literally sitting there with you and saying, well, what do you think the rat card should say? and then it got launched into a system. That's crazy to me. That was the process. Because we didn't know. You're sitting there with a husband and wife marketing team. Like, okay, we didn't know what the hell we were going.
Well, and I think I think the first 5, like I would say, mainly the first 5 years, or maybe I can't recall time, or maybe it was year 5 to 7, or the last couple of years. I think we've made just it kind of compounded to where we made huge strides really quickly. That changed everything. Because if I still ran things like I did in 2018 and 2019, there's no way in hell I'd be able to keep doing this.
Yeah, it'd be too much.
Yeah.
Well, that actually is a good segue into this question that I have for you. So, a lot of people, and we were talking about athletes transitioning, a lot of people have this perception that franchising is like plug and play, right? Like it's very easy to do, and you have everything you need. And that's kind of the way that it's, quote unquote, I'm using my fingers, sold to people when they get in there. But Casey, I want to hear it from you. Like, what's something that people don't understand about owning a franchise? If you could tell them one thing that you think is a misperception.
I mean, it goes back to what you say. I mean, they think it's easy and it's just an ATM. You sit back and you're on the beach, watching your bank account go up, when it's 24/7, 24 hours a day. And if you're not competing, or you get complacent, or you lose your edge, I mean, you're as good as dead. And I mean, that's just the bare minimum.
That was a good hot take.
That's great. I mean, and it's business. I mean, just because it's a franchise doesn't mean you don't have to run your friggin' business. Like, the value of the franchise is they've got an established product. The product's proven to sell in markets. They've got established brand, but you still have to run that in your community.
I think one of the hardest things, and I have no problems admitting it, and we've gotten a lot better at it recently, is, the value for a franchise partner buying into a brand is the operating system, right? That's it, the playbook. But where I think I see a lot of people go wrong, we're guilty of it too. We used to do it all the time, is thinking that is like in concrete and it cannot change, right? And if you have that, you are dead. And like, we've done a really good job of bringing owners like you and just any owner willing to contribute into making changes when we need to make them, and getting feedback from owners out in the field on insert an example. There's millions of them, but I think, like you said, the value is that playbook, that operating system of what made it a franchise in the first place. But that's got to be a living, breathing organism, because if you just think you're going to put that in a binder or a digital document and just leave it there and go, all right, this is it, it's not going to work that way.
I think that's why, at the time when I was 25, I didn't realize this, but I learned it soon on after being in the system. I think, one thing that was so attractive about Clean Eats, and I think still is, and I give credit to you and Yvonne with it, is how much owner input there is. Obviously, I think that, you and I talk often, and I probably annoy the hell out of you. I mean, I think there's so much upside still that we haven't even touched. And I think, allowing, because I mean, we're your soldiers in the field. We're out there every single day. Getting impact, whether it be from staff, whether it be from customers, from what things we see. And I think all of us being able to contribute in some, fashion, whether or not we go with that idea or not, but it's a sounding board to where, we can keep lifting the brand higher and higher.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, the soldiers in the field's a great metaphor, brother. Like, because they're the players on the field, and like Clean Eats is still an emerging franchise. I mean, you're right, man. If it was baked in, we'd all be screwed.
I hear a stat all the time. It's very common in franchising when you go to all the conventions and if you're involved in the industry, which I try not to be for many reasons, but you hear, I think less than 5% of franchise brands make it to 100
Right.
units. So, I mean, I feel very proud that we've done that and we've exceeded it actually, but even still, like we're still a baby. We're still an infant. 10 years in at 120 units, just wild to think about. So another question that I got, what do you think separates successful franchisees from the ones that struggle? What do you think that separation skill is?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's grit. I mean, obviously, someone that's really smart, it's experienced, they're going to have a leg up. They've done it before. They have certain, skill sets they've learned in other careers or whatever. But at the end of the day, like we talked about previously, it's being willing to, lace your shoes and work when you have to work, and being in there. I pride myself on. I mean, I'm in my stores, 7 days a week. Not that I have to be, but one, I want to be. I like what we're doing. I like interacting with our customers and our staff. But it's not just going to go like this, and being able to still commit and get out of bed and go in there and do what needs to be done when you're kind of in the shitter, for a lack of a better term, and just keep going. It goes back. I mean, it's cliche, but they say like discipline's better than motivation, and I mean I think that's true in so many aspects of life, whether it's working out or your diet or business or whatever. You got to go do the stuff you don't want to do when it needs done.
I love it, man. Everything you're saying,
I couldn't have said it
dude,
better,
because
yeah.
people respond more to the fear of losing than the opportunity to gain. And what you're talking about too, it's like to be in your stores. I would imagine just from my business, I'm proud to be there and see like it feels good to be there. Sometimes it's not just like, oh, I got to work. It's like, dude, look what we're doing. Good, bad, and different. It's a good feeling to say we're here, we're surviving, we're growing. I wish, and I think that comes down to grit. I agree with you 100%. It's waking up and wanting to be present in what you are building.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing that's hard about what we're doing is, I mean, it's not always the easiest thing to convince people to eat healthy.
Right.
We're selling something to people that traditionally they don't make that choice,
Yeah.
So it's, being in there, being a part of the community, educating the customer on why to make these decisions in life, why to make these better eating decisions. So, it's cool. I mean, I've had over my, years being involved in this, I've had several customers come into the store, in tears crying because their, life has been completely changed. And, to be able to be a part of that and make a living at the same time, I mean, I don't know if you can ask for something better than that.
I would agree. Yeah, that's probably my favorite part too. We still get it 10 years later in Wilmington, and I'm not on the cafe side too much anymore, but on the moments that I am and I get that, I'm like, I get goosebumps and I'm like, all right, this is still while I'm here, and then even on the owner side, when, owners will call me and tell me something that they've done or where they went or something that they've bought or, they reached a milestone. I'm like, all right, fuck yeah. Like this is good. This is why we're here. I got one more question for you, man. How do you stay motivated when things get tough or, you have a down week, down month? And I'll explain why I'm asking. I don't mind talking about it. We're in the restaurant business, right? And if you pay attention to the business world, restaurants have taken a beating over the last, call it 18 months, 2 years, especially in the QSR space where we're at.
Yeah.
That industry has just kind of gone like this over the last 2 years, since COVID pretty much. So, and I know a lot of our owners have had really good ups and downs, but when you get in them downs, man, I've been there and I know how hard it is mentally. So like, what is one thing that just keeps you going and like to where you're not freaking the fuck out and being like, all right, I'm going to lose it all. I'm just going to sell it and go find something else to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you have days like that, where you just want to say screw it, but then you come back to level yourself. I think it comes down. I mean, this is like more of the athlete in me, but I think it comes down to hating losing more than you like winning.
That's me.
Like I hate to lose.
Yeah,
I hate it. And I mean, we couldn't even play board games as kids because we'd be throwing fists, over losing. And I think you have to take that mentality, into it. And I mean, that's how I go about my day. I mean, obviously, we have bad days, we have good days, good seasons, bad seasons, but it's, knowing you're going to come out on the other side, knowing of all the things you've overcome in life, put it in perspective. Like, you'll get through this, you'll figure out a way. And I think it's, would say it a lot, just figure it out. Like, just figure it out.
I love it.
I do too, man. And we're cut from the same cloth because that's exactly how I do it. I'm like, I am not losing. Like, we're down. We're going to get back up. We're going to do it. And I don't care what I got to do.
The fear of losing is a greater motivator than the fear of the opportunity to gain and win.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I'll let you get back to it. I know you got things to do, but I appreciate you taking the time, sharing your story, and joining us today. Thank you.
Casey, you're a good dude. Always have been, man. Thank you.
All right, guys. Till next time.